And welcome to a show that hasn't happened in over a week now. This is Bald and nowhere near Balding. And wonderful host, or one host, guest, Bowen Greenwood, who is the author of many too many books, if that's even possible. And he is calling from the great state of Montana, and I've covered like half of our research notes now in one statement. Well,
Quite the introduction.
Yeah, welcome, you guys. Are good to see you. Thanks for having me on the show. You have the unique distinction of being the very first YouTubers to ever consider me worthy of attention. So I'm deeply honored to be here.
That is, well, I was going to say that is one, a great honor for us, but all, and two, shocking, and three, I am so sorry. So terribly sorry. No, minus the fact that obviously this is not the Bald&Balding that everyone is used to. I feel like the antithesis. I think this show is about to explode from too much hair, but that you two still make it up for us. So we've balanced things out.
yeah, so just a little house cleaning in case people are wondering. No, I have not stolen Isaac's partner from all caps. I assume you guys probably have more viewers than us by now. It's been 2 weeks, so probably. But anyway, all caps, great show. I know it's on Monday nights, and if I weren't sick for the last 2 weeks, I could tell you more, but that's what it is. And then more importantly, Bowen is here. I cannot believe this is your first interview. Oh my goodness.
That is mind blowing. Yeah.
I think it probably is, unless I lost track of it along the way. Oh my word, look at that. There's my old friend Sarah logging in on the chat. We used to write Tomb Raider fan fiction together.
Oh, very fun. How long ago was that?
Yesterday? No, I'm kidding. That would have been in the mid-90s.
Wow. Yeah, I think you were telling us before you started very young writing in your early teens, I think you said?
So I started making stuff up when I was in elementary school. But the first novel I ever tried to write was just around the end of my college years, which would, again, have been the early to mid-90s. And it was terrible. And there's a good reason why it's never seen the light of day.
Yeah.
But over the years, I was able to sort of take some of that and turn it into stuff that was worthwhile in other formats. Yeah, I've been writing for a long time, but I tried in the early 2000s. I tried the traditional publishing route, and you guys may have heard of this thing called the U.S. Postal Service. We used to print out sample chapters of our manuscripts and email them to agents and mail them to agents and publishing companies. Never quite worked out, but in 2014 I came back to it and started the Amazon self-publishing route, and I've never looked back.
Nice.
I'm definitely feeling young again, right? I mean, I am young, but you get my point. Considering the fact I realized this year has probably been the last year and a half includes the first times I have sent mail and just this past week or two having trouble with the U.S. Postal Service. But before that, I think it had been a solid 5 to 10 years since I had sent physical mail. And it's all book mail. It's all books, to reviewers. So yeah.
Yeah, well, there is still a good reason for the Postal Service. It's the precious paperback art copies.
Yep, absolutely.
Don't send them to Canada because they lost an arm and a leg for some reason. And I don't think it's nearly as bad for the Canadians sending it here, but for some reason we're just lucky.
Yeah, I haven't found the prices too bad, but some of the delays are just pure evil. Sometimes I forget how big a country the U.S. is. I mean, we're as long and we do have a lot of land, but so sparsely populated that it's never really a problem. You guys, I send something, it can take 2, 3, 4 weeks for a stupid book to reach someone on the other side.
Yeah, nobody mails to Caribou, so a lot of
Dog sled. We go by dog sled here. Thank you very much.
Are there actual Mounties there?
Yes, but not. You'd only see them ceremonially here where I am in the capital. But in the prairies, absolutely. If anything, they take pride in it. It's great. Yeah. But and now you say you're in Montana, right?
I am in Montana, which has a lot in common with some of the Western Canadian provinces, geographically speaking. More cows than people is one of the most common jokes out here.
Yeah.
And this is my home. I was born here, grew up here, love this state. I went to college on the East Coast and didn't like it very much. Love my school. I'm not a city person. I got on the very first flight I could back to Montana as soon as I graduated.
Very fair. Yeah. I've had both. I like quieter cities, not necessarily suburbs, but there are sleepy cities that exist. And then there are the bustling ones. I cannot stand the bustle.
Yeah.
So
this was Sarah's reminding me of an old Montana joke. Montana, where the men are men, the women are men, and the sheep are afraid.
That's good.
Which is definitely an old Montana joke. You'll hear that a lot out here.
That's really good.
This will take you all back in time. It was the 90s, the early 90s, when I went away to college, and poor rural me was shocked to discover that I could not pay for lunch with a check the first time I tried to go out in Washington, D.C. So it's a different world now.
Yeah, I mean, I use void checks to get my banking numbers every once in a while. But other than that, I think it has been, I could probably say with almost certainty, it's probably been since 2015. Yeah, I'm going to go back a full 10 years since I have actually used a check for its actual purpose.
Right? Exactly.
That's wild.
No one does anymore.
They look great.
Tim, I will tell you, you were officially old when you said, I'll go back to 2015. I'm like, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Start thinking the 90s were like 15 years ago and the 80s were 20 years ago. When you divide real time by 2, because that's what's in your head.
Yeah.
You've lived too long and things are getting squished out of your brain.
So I still have a bit to go. But I do have a solid, I was born close enough to the 80s to have at least some nostalgia for them, despite not living through them. But early 90s kid, I have my pre-2000 nostalgia locked in. So I do, I have that going for me at least.
So, and Bowen, do you go to Comic-Cons?
I never have yet. I've got my eye on possibly doing it maybe this year, maybe next. But it's a market I'm missing. I might as well check it out.
Well, because you publish sci-fi and thrillers. Do I have that right?
That's pretty much most of it. Yes. E.L. Montaigne is noticing my crock pot behind me. Sorry to YouTube from the kitchen, but it's the closest thing I have to an actual studio. So I write thrillers, and I have the one sci-fi series, the XL War series. And I also, every now and then, I have dabbled a little bit in, I think I broke it. I think I dabbled a little bit in some young adult Christian superhero stories once upon a time.
Oh, fun. Okay. Yeah, that's really taking it back.
Yeah. I'm sad to report that they're kind of my immature work as a writer. So they're not the first thing I recommend that people get to know me by.
Fair. I did reviewing for it was technically a Christian publisher. So they brought in some just clean secular content, and then they brought in a lot of more religious themed, but I still mostly did a lot of their historical fiction or their sci-fi and some Christian horror, which can actually be surprising. Like, I shouldn't say surprisingly, but there's some really good content out there. So I wouldn't, I'm not past the point of giving what YA superhero stuff its fair shake. But now that you've told me it's not good, forget it.
Well, some people would say that about all of my writing. So never mind.
Okay, just cleaning up some stuff. Tim McKay, he launched. Did I say this already? All caps. That's your new channel.
Yeah, you mentioned it briefly, but.
And Ro could not be here because he's driving and he was in a traffic jam. So if you want to say something nice about Roe, and he will never ever see it, and I will never ever tell him because I don't give or receive compliments, now is your time to say something nice about Roe, and it will not be spoken aloud.
We'll leave it up for about a minute, and then delete it. So get it up there now. We're monitoring.
Right.
We don't want to risk it getting to his head.
Right,
Then
exactly.
he'll really go bald.
And the last thing I want to tell you is this happened to me again. I was at the Comic-Con 2 weeks ago, and I sold the book, signed it, and the girl got the book. She goes, "Oh my God, I always wanted someone who could write in squiggles."
Okay, see, there's another this is not an old person badge, but I this is a mark of pride for me. I had someone say that about a signed copy I sent them recently. They said I cannot read this, and I thought, yes,
Nice.
Victory. That's just a badge of honor right there when they can't read your cursive. And it was not. Someone else who can read cursive then read it for them in the middle of the chat, and I thought, okay, so it is legible cursive. I've won here. This is perfect.
Secret language.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. What about you, Bowen? Experiences with sending signed copies and snafus?
People are very kind. I just try to hand out the paperbacks with the signing page blank, but everybody who receives one is very generous about asking for my autograph on it, and I consider them basically to be flattering me when they do that, because a sign. I think I said this in a reply to somebody's post on X the other day. Tom Clancy's signature on one of his novels would be worth a lot of money. Mine is not worth quite so much.
I always worry mine might decrease the value of my books. Do you? So you said you don't go to a lot of Comic Cons, but or any so far. But do you do a lot of bookshop signings and things like that? Then?
Well, I don't really do. My book business is probably 90% or more ebooks, except audiobooks are picking up a little bit right now. I basically use the paperbacks as a marketing tool. So, you look on Amazon and it says this book is $15.99, but wait, you can get the ebook for only $3. So paperbacks aren't really my focus, but like, for example, next weekend or the weekend after that, I'm giving away the entire Sherman Iron series at a nonprofit organization's fundraising dinner as it's my contribution to help them raise money. So,
very nice.
Yeah. EL is making the funny point that if Tom signed a book, it would be bad news right now. He's dead. Gosh. Despite the fact that they continue to publish books under his name, he is in fact deceased.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. I feel like I was going to ask a question off of that. Signatures, audiobooks. Yeah, that was going to be my question then. So do you have audiobooks for all your books? Or
I don't. I have audiobooks for some. The first two Sherman Iron books have audiobook versions. The first Death of Secrets has an audiobook version. That was the very first book I ever published. Life of Secrets, a semi-sequel, has, don't beat me up, I just tried it to see how it went. Life of Secrets has an Amazon AI audiobook.
Okay.
Which my readers have not really complained much about, but and then I'm working right now through getting the entire Exile War series out as audiobooks. I happen to look into an extraordinary narrator, so that's kept me working on it.
Very nice. That was going to be my question. Same narrator, or
if you look up Son of Sonnet on X, that guy can absolutely act a book out for you. Cannot recommend him highly enough.
Very cool. I love looking into different narrator options. Well, Mike, you've used ACX, is that right?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. So that's what I'm doing for mine. So I'm finally getting the audiobook for my book. The aim is by the end of April, and it's a very fun process. Oh my gosh.
So I got to ask Tim. Sorry, Bowen.
Please do. I want to ask Tim things.
But when you put out the voice audition, did you just feel like I put out a voice audition? What the hell is going on in this world?
Well, so initially I just thought, okay, let's see what happens. When I got responses within hours, that's when it felt good. That's when that strokes your ego a little bit, and then you hear some of them, and you're like, oh boy, sound effects in the background or some of the more unique voices. But I mean, one of the very first ones I got was the narrator I chose because he was just so good. And hearing your characters come to life, that's just such a good feeling.
So I did not think I could afford him, but when I asked Andrew Meredith if he would do my book, The Haley Traveler, and he's affordable, I am so excited. Oh my God.
That's very cool. Yeah, I've heard only good things. I mean, I've heard his voice, but I don't think I've actually heard narration samples, so that's very, very exciting.
I've heard 4 of his books, and he does a 6-year-old, and you're like, okay, that's the 6. You wouldn't confuse him. I'm like, the man can do it. Oh, I'm so excited. But
I have the Haley Traveler on my Kindle.
Very cool.
So, Bowen, how about you? How was your voice auditions? Was that ego stroking or?
Well, it's like you said, it's very flattering when you put something out there and the auditions start coming in almost right away. And I've had a different experience this time. I see my friend JP is on. He's got a question for me. Let me just talk about audiobooks for a second, and then I'll answer that one. I had a very different experience with the Excel War books than I did with Death of Secrets. Mm-hmm. I really felt like Death of Secrets, the audiobook version, made me very self-conscious about every single last bit of writing that I could have done better. And I did not actually enjoy listening to that. The narrator was great, but I was a young writer, and that book could have stood another editing pass before it went to the audiobook narrator. And I felt really self-conscious about that. But for these science fiction books, I have a great narrator, and the books, I hate to say it, I know this sounds very vain, but I absolutely love those books. So
I think it's a good sign when the author likes their own books.
It's a really good experience for me getting the audiobook narrators out there.
Yeah.
That's
which audiobook to start with? If you like mystery novels, that's an easy question. Irons in the Fire. And if you prefer sci-fi, if you're willing to sit through a slow opening, then Onslaught is the place to start the Exile War series. If you can't sit through a slow opening, then Hope for Mercy is the place to start the Exile War series. And JP asked a minute ago about where do I get inspiration when I hit a dry spell. And I take a lot of inspiration from music. I don't know how many of you guys, some of you will, some of you will not. About half the Exile War series was written to Sabaton.
Okay.
And when it wasn't Sabaton, it was Journey or AC/DC or some electronic music. And that just, I mean, like, I have a playlist that I call the Exile War soundtrack. That's those 3 bits of music. And it's like, I can't stop writing when I play that stuff.
I find if I have something with lyrics, even ones I can't make out.
Yale. Thank you for buying Onslaught.
Purchased. Yeah, that's awesome. I find I can't write if I listen to something with lyrics, but I can do instrumental, classical, movie soundtracks, things like that. I don't always. Sometimes I find even that too distracting. So it really depends on the mood. But if the music matches the mood I'm trying to write, that's the sweet spot.
I think I don't know if any of you all know Yuval Kordov on X. But he's posted some of his writing music in the past, and it's almost all instrumental soundtrack type music.
Yeah. I will have, I think, right next to me. Yeah, I have Hand of God right here. So definitely on my TBR.
Excellent. Yep. That's an amazing book right there.
Yeah, I'm excited. I've heard only good things. And it looks like that right blend between, sci-fi and thinking and depth and action. So
it's really a thinking man's book.
Yeah.
Which makes it surprising that I enjoyed it, but I did.
So Bowen, we're 20 minutes into the show, so I'm going to ask you, tell us about your books.
I feel like we've done better than, things usually go on this show. This has been book adjacent.
So let's see. Sherman Iron is the Sherman Iron Mysteries are pretty much an example of what happens when I try to put all of the best writing advice out there into practice. It was a deliberate effort to write what you know. I started out in my career as a police beat reporter for a small town newspaper, and so that's what Sherman is. Sherm. He, for example, here we have Irons in the Fire. And Sherm's a police beat reporter, so that's a good stand-in for a PI. If you want to write a private investigator type novel, a reporter makes a good PI character. And I knew what being a reporter was like. And then Sherman lives in Hunter, Montana, and that's just like a combination of Billings and Helena. So it's really me writing about what I know. And I'm out of date on this. I hesitate to even bring it up for fear that everybody's going to mock my lack of skills. But once upon a time, I was really into sort of the coding, really tech savvy community. Not anymore. That was back in the Windows 98 days. But Sherm's partner in crime, who eventually gets married to him, is kind of a hacker / tech consultant type. And so the result of writing what you know turned out to be a series of books that's been more successful than anything else I've ever written. Actually, it's close financially, but in terms of reviews and in terms of my newsletter subscribers liking the books, Sherman Iron is the most successful thing I've ever written. He's the one I get emails about. If I spend too much time writing other books, sooner or later the emails start coming in about when are we getting more Sherman Iron. The other big series is the Exile War series, and that's a couple of reviewers have hit on the easiest way to describe it. It's a little bit grittier Star Wars. I make no bones about it. I've loved Star Wars since I saw the original in the theaters in 1977. And I had a few bones to pick with the prequel trilogy. I thought if you have an inherited superpower, which the Force is, it was always designed to be inherited from parents to children. If you have an inherited superpower, the single stupidest thing you can possibly do is take a vow of celibacy. That is a ginormous piece of bad plotting there. And what you would more likely do if you had an inherited superpower is arrange marriages. So I started creating this fake Jedi who were bound by arranged marriages to produce the strongest possible telepathy. And the universe kind of grew out of that, became a forbidden love story between some people who fall in love outside their arranged marriage. And it's a big space opera, interstellar war, good versus evil, good times. I love it. I cry when I get to the end every time.
That does sound like a lot of fun. And yeah, I don't think you're alone with, bones to pick with the prequels.
No, well, I'm sure I'm not.
Now I want to hear your opinion on the sequels, but we'll get to that.
Well, oh my gosh, we'll start a war online if we
I'm game. Flashing back really quick to something you said about your original series then, how does that impact how does that impact the kind of advice you now give to other writers? Would you say, okay, that the advice that you took, it worked well, so is it something you say others should do, or no? I'm just curious.
I have, yes, Sarah, we absolutely did have some epic Star Wars conversations back in the day. I believe in write what you know. It works. It saves you a lot of trouble with research, if nothing else. I just recently finished a brand new series starter of a historical thriller set in the Cold War that the first book took place in Panama. And I had to do a truckload of research for that because I don't know anything about Panama. it's much easier to write what you know, and you come off sounding more authentic. So yeah, if anybody's considering that, if you can by hook or by crook make your ordinary life seem interesting, that is absolutely what you should write about.
Okay, well now you've just disqualified most of us. Yeah, but okay, now Star Wars. Just because I okay, give us a condensed, start some fire on the internet right here, right now. This is what's going to finally get Bald&Balding over 500.
So I'm probably going to lose all of my followers on X when I say this, but I don't hate The Last Jedi as much as everybody else does. I like the trope of the burned out veteran who doesn't want to fight anymore. They could have done a lot better. They needed to write that instead of just assume it. But everybody else in the world hates The Last Jedi, and I'm just like, they made an effort at a plot I like. And
the burned out character being Luke or being Han?
Yeah, Luke Skywalker being sort of the burned out veteran who doesn't want to fight anymore and tries to walk away from it all. I enjoy that trope. And the I thought, and maybe I'm the only one here. See, I'm losing all my followers right now. I thought the obvious, unmissable hints at romance between Kylo Ren and Rey weren't all bad. And again, you see that in the Exile War books. In the second act of the Exile War series, Mercy and Dante are very much like Rey and Kylo Ren in that sense, that they have a cross-ideological romance blooming. Enemies to lovers, the romance writers call it.
I think if you took out some big segments of the movie, there was a lot I liked about it. And so I'm actually totally with you on Luke Skywalker. I didn't mind what they did with him. Some people really did, and I just didn't share that hate. And I definitely didn't mind a lot of what they did with Kylo and Rey.
In retrospect now, having heard some of the criticisms of The Last Jedi, which are in fact valid, there are some really good criticisms of it. And
the pink hair Jurassic Park lady will just always be the end for me. Sorry.
Having heard those criticisms and seen The Rise of Skywalker, which was an utter failure, it sort of stopped. It sort of put the kibosh on my enjoyment of The Force Awakens. That movie became lesser in my eyes based on what came after it.
That's fair.
So I don't watch the sequels. I saw them in the movie theaters. I actually had a good time. I didn't hate either the first two sequels while I was in the theater. But much like, to tell you the honest truth, don't at me. I hated it. I didn't hate Attack of the Clones when I was in the theater. I came out having had a good time. So
I think minus a little bit of Hayden Christensen. I love Hayden Christensen. I think he was a fantastic Anakin Skywalker, but just one or two of his really creepy moments that they tried to pass off as romance. Other than that, I enjoyed the movie, but that just, no, I don't know.
It was the romance needed work. And this is, again, I'm being very vain here, but that was something I set out to try to do better on. I was inspired by some complaints I had about the prequels when I tried my own hand at sci-fi, and I really did my best to write a better forbidden love story than.
I mean, you shouldn't set the bar that low for yourself, but fair enough.
And whether I accomplished that or not, I don't know. The reviews of Onslaught are generally somewhat critical of me overwriting the romance. It's very purple prosy. It's 100% clean. There's never any graphic sex, but it's very writerly.
Fair. Is that something when it comes to writing style? Then would you describe? Does that stretch over to your thrillers too, or do you vary your writing style between?
My thrillers are very, very, very plot driven, and you will hear some of your more erudite critics criticizing plot driven books, but not me. I love the plot.
Yeah.
My joke.
You're in good company here.
If somebody's not dead by the end of the first chapter, something has gone wrong. If you don't know what to do, put a dead body on the floor and see what happens. Yeah, I write a very different, very running from the bad guys constantly kind of thriller, and I write what I like.
Yeah. I think we need, that's the thing, is there is a lot of focus on character driven writing in a lot of review circles. And I talk to so many friends and fellow readers who we love a good, strong plot. And I don't mind if that's the driving force. I frankly love stories where that's the driving force, and make sure the characters are real too. But yeah, so write what you like.
I haven't, just in case we haven't already started the internet civil war over the Last Jedi, I'll mention the next most controversial topic is last year I was a judge in the self-published science fiction competition. And I remember having intense debates with other people on my judging team who were really impressed with a few different books I won't name. And I was like, are you kidding me? It's god awful boring. Not a single darn thing happens in this book. And, there are some science fiction fans who enjoy 5 chapters worth of world building before anybody dies. And not me.
Yeah. It's tough. Like, that's the thing about sci-fi is I tend to drift more towards sci-fi thrillers, because a good techno thriller, because it has that mix of lore and world building, but with the pacing of a thriller, and I love that. So, but I can appreciate space opera, but it's usually not my go-to, just because you read so many that are very, very slow, very, very slow. There has to be a space for it, but yeah. So that's good to hear. I don't mind a little purple prose if it comes with some strong plot.
I just remembered. And it probably doesn't matter, but E.L. Montague was kind enough to grab the audio version of Onslaught. And I should mention that as much as I've been singing Sonnet's praises, that's actually a different narrator. So she's great too. I say nothing bad about her, but Sonnet is just the guy for that series.
Fair. So it's just the one that's the first book in the series?
The first book has a different narrator, and then all the rest of them are the same guy.
Very cool.
And that's, I don't know why. I don't really, I suppose a psychoanalyst would have some things to say about this, but I just naturally default to female characters. And that's very true in the Exile War series. I think it probably drove Sonnet crazy that like 2/3 of the characters are women, and he's constantly having to digitally tune his voice. That's why I went with the female narrator the first time, is because there are so many women.
Fair.
So, Bowen, I have one random question and then some silly questions for you.
Brilliant.
What is your feeling on prairie dogs?
So I should first start out by admitting that I'm like the world's only urban Montanan. I've always lived in towns. I have a lot of friends who shoot the daylights out of prairie dogs. I mean, I know a lot of people who consider it the best entertainment you can get if a rancher will let you come out and clean up the prairie dogs for them. I don't actually do that myself, but I wholeheartedly endorse prairie dog hunting.
One time I was in Montana, I'm driving along and it said, pull off here to see a groundhog, community. And I pulled off and I'm like, okay, yeah, never seen these, oh, there's one, this stupid Easterner going, oh my God, look, there's a small furry animal.
Well,
5 minutes, no one else pulled off. Everyone else is just zipping along. And I'm like, they've got to think I'm the stupidest damn person alive.
Everything is
no comment.
Everything is interesting when you don't see it every day,
I mean, that's fair. Yeah.
I'm sure I looked like a rube when I was in DC staring at all the monuments.
Okay. Who is your main character in Exile Wars?
So because it's so heavily inspired by Star Wars, the series breaks very easily into a prequel trilogy and original trilogy stage. And the prequel trilogy stage is really built around a guy called Langston Wheeler. My fake Jedi are called the Gentle Hand. They are telepaths and martial artists instead of sword fighters. And Lang is sort of the rising star, the upcoming hero, the one everybody's impressed with, who makes a bunch of bad decisions about women. And as a result, well, this is a bit of an exaggeration, but makes a bunch of bad decisions about women and sets off an interstellar war.
That tracks. I think we just explained world history right there.
I think most of the gentlemen in the audience will be able to understand setting off a war by making bad decisions about women. But and it's kind of the story of Lang coming of age and coming to understand that a real man does not chase women for fun, that he makes a commitment to take care of people and take care of his community. So it's an uplifting message at the end, but he does make a lot of bad decisions in the beginning.
Nice. That sounds like a good story.
And I wrote it with the again, I was very heavily inspired by Star Wars, but also all the big names everybody knows. There's Dune inspiration in there. There's Wheel of Time inspiration in there. And I was kind of had this idea to write my epic, There's a bunch of big fantasy series out there. So this was going to be me trying to do that. So Lang was deliberately designed to be the stereotype heroic character. He's 6'4", has jet black hair and ice blue eyes, and, grew up being the big man on campus jock, everybody's garden variety hero.
Classic.
Here's a question for you. Lang has been charged by me to write a self-help book. What is the problem or problems that he's going to try to tell people to overcome, and how will he accomplish this? Poorly? Or?
Well, avoiding spoilers, he might find it more difficult to write that book than you would expect. But he is certainly going to recommend to everybody who will listen that the good person commits himself to the good of the other, not to the good of himself. That the real hero serves rather than having fun.
Nice.
Now, when you were writing, was that something you? Well, I guess this is a double question, because you say you're plot driven. So how much of that plot do you have thought out in advance before you write? And do you have the sort of message as part of that plot from the get-go, or is that something that came out naturally as you wrote?
It was always going to be about somebody falling to the dark side and being redeemed by someone who loves them. Back in those old fan fiction writing days with Sarah and I have a couple of very elaborate Star Wars fan fictions about a Sith master and apprentice who fall in love and end up redeeming each other to the light. And so it was always going to be that. It was always going to be somebody falling to the dark side and being redeemed. It didn't work out exactly like I planned. I think the character who ends up redeemed might be a little different, but that was the arc the whole time. And some elements of the plot I'm a what they call a pantser. I'm always kind of embarrassed by that term. It sounds a little bit dirty, but call it a discovery writer or a gardener, if you like.
I like discovery or flashlight.
And so a lot of it came to light as I was writing. I had one character who's the chief executive of a planet, and I hit book 3 and I realized there's no way this character is not going to insist on liberating her conquered planet. She won't rest until it's done. She won't let them do anything else. And so that changed the whole course of the series. But the plot, the basic idea was always there.
Very nice. Yeah. I think most, and I kind of put myself in the same category. I meet very few tried and true 100% pantsers who go in knowing nothing and just go for it. I think most of the ones I meet have at least some bits and pieces, maybe the overall arc, maybe the beginning and the end, and maybe one or two pieces in between. but we all kind of come in with at least some sense of there's a story here that needs to be told. Yeah, that's fun. It's just so weird.
That is, I think on the advice of counsel, I declined to answer.
Wise. Do sweatpants count?
Yeah, right.
So good.
Okay, so should we take a trip to the Bald Dome?
Oh, that's wild. It's been 40 minutes. Yeah, we're due. We are due for the Bald Dome. Do we need it? Well, no, we don't need a new name for it. It's your. I feel safe.
I know what you're going to ask, and the answer is the green generic razors from Walmart.
Okay.
Oh, that's so good. Okay. As much hair as I have right now, there was a brief period where I went bald, and it was mostly because of a dare. There's a story behind it, but I had a monk haircut for a bit, and then we took it all off, went completely bald. Bic razors all the way. Yeah, that's how you do it.
Okay, Bowen. So what we do, we want to find out more about your character Lang, but we don't want you to give us spoilers. So he is going to be transported away to somewhere new. All the rules and physics of your world still hold sway, but he's someplace he's never been. And this is more for fantasy people, so he will end up facing a fantasy setting and an adversary. And I will set it up and then tell you ask you what happens, and then you take it away and you fill in the scene.
I will do my best.
Okay. And Ro's not here, so we can use my list of.
Yes.
So Lang has been transported. He has no weapons or anything with him, just him, and he's clothed. But he has been transported to a sunken city beneath the waves. Apparently there's a dome so he can breathe. But, otherwise, he gets what's your favorite color, Bowen?
I guess blue.
Okay, he gets a blue fizzy potion. He knows it is 100% effective, but he doesn't know what it does. So whether he uses it or uses it on his adversary, it 100% will work. He just has no idea what it does. It's a blue fizzy potion, though. We do that to try to get people to use it because normally people are like, I'm not using that. What the hell is that? So we make it their favorite color. So now Lang gets a choice. He can have a common item or he can have a weapon. If he chooses a common item, he will end up facing a common animal. If he chooses a weapon, he will face a fantasy creature. Which does he choose?
We're going to have to go. Well, first of all, before I answer that, I'm just going to say with a underwater domed city, I've got to interject an obligatory Misa Tinka Yusa people going to die. But that being said, Lang is a martial artist who fights better with his hands than with any weapon. So we'll go for the common item.
Okay. Well,
really quick. Speaking of Jar Jar, Ro isn't here for the obligatory, Jar Jar hate, or for the obvious question of who is your favorite Star Trek captain, and the answer should be Janeway.
The truth is, I don't watch a lot of Star Trek, but what I watched was mostly the Next Generation, so probably Picard. Also, I liked his hairstyle.
Excellent answer.
So Lang, I'm glad that he knows martial arts because his common item is 3 tallow candles.
All right.
He could have got a dagger, which is only moderately better, I guess. But now, that's too easy. I think I need to change. Instead of a spectral wraith, 17, we're going to go up one. He's going to face a Komodo dragon.
Nice.
Sounds too weak.
An underwater Komodo dragon.
Yes. Well, there's a dome. There's options.
In the dome, yeah.
And he has 3 tallow candles and a blue fizzy potion that I should probably look up what it does in case he wants to use it. Okay. So he's been transported there. He's, after he gets over his jet lag or, transport lag, whatever it is, he starts exploring the city. He turns around the corner, which they're all curved for some reason. There are no corners. He turns around the curve, and lo and behold, he sees a Komodo dragon that is sitting there eating a deer because I just induced a deer to be there. Komodo dragon looks up, sees him, starts flicking its tongue, At Lang, what does Lang do?
So I'm going to bar myself from using too much of an authentic Exile War Lang, because my joke way of talking about the Gentle Hand is telepathic martial arts space mages. So the in-universe response would be a fireball. But I am going to say backs away.
And Komodo dragon starts, following him, flicking its tongue more energetically, if that's possible. The whole,
Spits a little poison, maybe, at his feet.
Yep.
That is exactly how I would play a kimono dragon right there. Well, I don't know.
He has 3 tallow candles and he has a blue fizzy potion.
Maybe try to distract the Komodo dragon by throwing the candles behind it.
Okay, he throws it. Goes to the first one, tastes it, not in the tallow. So he keeps coming.
Well, that works. So let's see.
We're basically going to keep pressuring you until you do something with that potion. Just a heads up.
Well,
engage in some way.
Well, shall we cut to the chase then and have him drink the potion?
Okay. The one time when I don't want people to use it, at least on themselves, is the potion of invulnerability.
Oh, nice.
So that makes it a little easier for you.
So now that we have a potion of invulnerability, we can just beat the snot out of the dragon.
There you go. That was kind of where I figured we would end up.
That was really easy. Huh.
Yes.
See, yeah, you should have thrown it. We would have had a more interesting story. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, they're normally yeah. I think that's the most rigged potion I've ever seen on this show.
I know.
Do other people not get quite that lucky with their potion?
I don't think so.
The one I have is the Elixir of Youth, which halves the age of the person. And we had a middle grade author whose character was 14 who took it and then became a 7-year-old. But then he just did not want to kill a child. So we had, he runs away into the desert and doesn't die of anything.
There's at least one time where a love potion got either taken or thrown at the monster. I can't remember, but
oh no.
Yep. There's been some good ones.
But okay, well, that was at least honest. We had one person who decided that with a club, his character was going to defeat a griffin.
It seems unlikely to me, but
he just really liked his character and was not going to let his character die. So it is
on the subject. On the subject of griffin, I think we know there's a question we have to ask now.
Oh, is this Harry Potter house?
No, we could do that too, but no. Come on, Mike. Don't we always ask? Yeah, come on.
Here to get it wrong. So I'm going to ask you a question. You have to choose one or the other. There is one correct choice, and the other is horribly, awfully wrong, and that's what Roach.
Oh, nice.
So envision yourself. You're going down the main street of your city, and you can be in a saddle astride either a T-Rex or a griffin. Which one do you choose, and why?
Well, I guess I'm going to guess the T-Rex because its arms are too short to reach me on its back.
Oh, no, you have control of it. It follows your lead.
Oh, okay. I take it then that that sounds like advice to me. So let's try the griffin instead.
Proper answer.
You just broke Mike's heart, I think. T-Rex because he's a man. Yeah.
Envision people, when you get in traffic and you're just like cussing at least under your breath at the person in front of you for being stupid. I just want to be astride the T-Rex and then have it grab the car with its mouth and just throw it.
Yeah. I'm in. I've definitely been behind that guy before.
If I'm in a griffin, what's he going to do? Droppings on the car?
See, I have too many terrifying memories from watching Jurassic Park way too young, combined with, I forget what movie it was. I think it was a Merlin movie. It was like a BBC miniseries. and then they turned it into a full-length movie, and there was a griffin in it that was absolutely terrifying and really fun and well done. I have to go the griffin every time. Do you honestly think anybody's going to be in front of you on the road?
No one is going to want to be in that traffic jam.
Yeah, no. Mike, I think we're losing your audio a bit. Minus the fact that you're, still.
Okay, so I have more silly questions if Tim doesn't have a meaningful one.
I mean, we've had a nice balance tonight. Yeah, but no, I mean, here I was just ready, eager to hear the T-Rex Griffin answer.
Hey, Bowen, a genetically modified superhuman escapes from a government lab and seeks revenge on your main character. What does Lang do?
Fight him.
Nice. Okay,
Who would win?
They are, after all, both genetically modified superhumans. So
yeah, fair.
He takes on
sorry.
And defeats him.
So the Lang's dead?
No. Oh, okay. So what is the best piece of writing advice that you have totally ignored?
There's a
good one.
I have a deep one to follow up too, although it's a bit different, but yes, I like this one.
Well, I have in the past totally ignored Write What You Know. So, withholding any comment on the man himself, Stephen King's On Writing has a lot of good advice for writers. And one piece of advice from that I don't really take is he tells a story about how when he first started selling books, he got himself a big desk with a nice chair and set it right in the middle of the room prominently. And this did not work out well for him. And I think he developed an alcohol problem. I'm not sure. Please don't sue me for slander. And then he eventually gave up on that and just got an ordinary modest desk and put it in the corner. And the moral of the story was that this is how you should approach writing, that it's not the center of the universe. It's something that you should put off to the side and treat humbly. And I have never really taken that seriously. I love my writing. It's what I look forward to when I wake up in the morning. Yeah. Even on days when I'm unproductive, I'm probably writing something that's not going to be for publication. And I do put writing very much front and center.
Yeah.
And I think of solutions while I'm on the treadmill, but not while I'm washing my hair.
Hey, running is a good spot, is a good time. Absolutely a great time to have some of those great story ideas.
Walking is also a good time.
Yes. Yeah.
Walking is much better.
Nice long walks, absolutely. Here's more of a plot question or just a theme question. Especially the moment you talked about redemption, a good redemption story. My immediate thought was, and it's a question I've been asked before too. So, how far is too far, or is there such a thing when it comes to writing a redemption arc? Do you have irredeemable characters for whom you would not dare, use that trope, so to speak?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, you don't want your readers to feel robbed. If you write the absolute dirtbag of dirtbags, the readers want to see that guy get his comeuppance.
Yeah. And
if you want them to be redeemed, there's got to be something that makes the readers want them to be redeemed. So, for example, the villain of the second half of the Exile War series is probably too, and I should preface this by saying villains aren't my strong suit, but probably too comic opera evil to ever be redeemed. this is an interesting story. I mentioned that I tried my hand at Christian fiction a couple times. The villain of the Sherman Iron Mysteries. And I see we've got Mark from Amazing Gaming Productions on here. Mark knows this. He read the books. I reached the end of the first 5 books of the Sherman Iron Mysteries, and Sherman shoots the bad guy. And it was a moment for me, because my faith is important to who I am, even if I'm not writing Christian fiction, that the line, I'm just going to make up a name here. Well, no, there's no point. Ramsey Castro is the villain of the series. And the last book of the Ram Castro cycle ends with, I put his nose in my sight picture and I blew him away. And that's fine. But I really, really wanted to write, I put his nose in my sight picture and I blew Ram Castro straight to hell. And I couldn't make myself write that because hell is not a place to be glorified.
Interesting.
That's a great line, though. But no, I hear you, and it's a hard line to toe between, faith. Well, not faith in art, but yeah. Anyways, that's
you just want to be authentic to your value system.
Yeah, exactly.
So, will you ever write fantasy or any other genre other than what you've done already?
So, my current work in progress is I'm back sort of in the same neighborhood as Christian fiction, writing something that's essentially urban fantasy. The idea is that there are people who have the gift of seeing the spirit world and can see demons. And these people fight demons with a sword of the spirit that appears when they call it. And our hero starts out having no idea that he has this gift and suddenly seeing scary demons left and right and has to learn how to use it. So that is in progress. After that, I have a ginormous epic fantasy in my head that will revolve around people who it's going to be a garden variety epic fantasy war story, but the thing that gives it life is the idea that there are giant birds, but only women are light enough to actually ride the birds into battle. So there will be a bunch of airborne archers raining fire down on the battlefield in this novel whenever I get around to it.
It's going to be a single epic fantasy novel or a series?
Oh, it'll have to be a series.
Sure.
Just from a commercial perspective, that tends to work better.
Yeah.
It gives you something to, you can give the first book away for free or cheap and blah, 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 all that stuff. Get the free prequel if you sign up for my email newsletter, et cetera, et cetera. And plus, once you start a big whole world that you made up, it's just fun to play around in it for a while.
Now, I have a feeling this varies by series and genre. Shut up and take my money. Yeah. I have a feeling this varies by genre and the two series, the two main series you're talking about, but length of the books on average. Where do you tend to? Yeah, Mike knows.
This may be I don't know. This probably is some writing advice that I'm ignoring. I shoot for 50,000 words. Sometimes I get far over that. A couple of books in the Exile War series are closer to 80. I will accept probably 44,000, but that's probably as low as it goes.
Fair. Yeah, Mike is very happy right now.
I'm a short attention span reader. I'm the world's most screen addicted human being. I'm scrolling some social media app or another all the time, and it has permanently damaged my attention span. So yeah, I like my short books.
Clearly RH disagrees. That's pretty funny. 50K. I mean, here's the thing. Mike makes fun of me because the first book I released was 170,000 words.
Oof, that is a conquer.
But I wrote it in 3 parts. I wrote it in 3 parts. I even initially published 2 of them separately, and then I decided, no, I think this story needs to be told together, but it's still 3 separate parts within the book itself, because my attention span can't do more than that. I'm writing the sequel right now. First part is roughly 55. Next part is it's going to be about 50, and so I like that middle ground. Even some of the chonkers I have and loved and read and loved, my favorites usually have that sort of crisp divide. Yeah. So, I mean, I get it though. There's a place for the massive chonkers, but I think as author, especially early on, a lot of early authors, it's very hard to break out with a chonker for sure.
So
I
get a chance
think
to burn down. Oh,
Go ahead.
sorry. Do I get a chance to burn down the internet?
Oh, let's try it.
Absolutely.
You know me, I don't read books over 500 pages. And anyone who has read all of the Wheel of Time books is absolutely nuts. When even the fans of the series call books of it the slog, and yet you still read the crap. Why?
So I was just talking to so funny, Wheel of Time tattoo. Okay. So I'm definitely a fan. And I was talking to someone about this just the other day. I made a post, and I guess because the new season is out, a whole bunch of fan accounts have their searches set. So it blew up. It really blew up. It was really funny. I was like, why are we talking? Okay. This was just meant to be my author friends, but hey, cool. Nice to meet you all. But the slog the so-called slog, I didn't notice it while reading it. To me, it was just the plot never disappeared for me. We were still following the same plot, and I'm plot driven, so I was hooked. And the characters were great, so I had the mix of everything I would want. The world building is fantastic. So I don't know. I think maybe those who. I don't think the plot weakened during that time. So I think those who maybe just don't like as much fantasy lore and were less enthused about the characters.
So this is somewhat unrelated criticism of the Wheel of Time series. While we're trying to set the internet on fire, they kind of lost me. Robert Jordan kind of lost me at Winter's Heart, because the male half of the true source had been cleansed. And I'm looking forward to some serious ass being kicked. And what actually happens is the next book is just the retelling of, I've noticed the male source is cleansed from 5 different perspectives.
Yeah,
and
that
the
is
plot
fair.
doesn't advance at all. It's just 5 different people noticing the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, maybe more than 5. But my point is that book was very frustrating for me. And
That's
yes,
fair.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree, El. The series lost me in its first episode with what they did to Perrin.
Yeah, that there are some very fair complaints to have against season 1, and I am not a fan of the finale at all. That was a soul crusher.
Because I never read the book, so I was like, okay, they're telling me a story.
So have you enjoyed the series overall so far, Mike?
I watched the first season. I've not watched the second one yet.
Okay. I'm thoroughly enjoying the third one so far. Minus one little change they made where I was kind of like, well, that was pointless, but I'm not surprised. And then they moved on.
9 books of 150,000 words. Oh, my word.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome, RH. Wow. Yeah. Haven't read the books. I might like this show. Yeah, I mean, that's a fair point, too. I tend to be able to watch adaptations as their own thing. But I'm finding the second half of the second season and the entire third season have been much truer to the books, sometimes in really surprising ways. I didn't expect them to adapt certain things. There's one almost horror style scene from the books, and they adapted that, I think, in either the first or second episode of this new season. It was glorious. It was really, really well done.
So I think it might have been book 7 of the Wheel of Time. There was a scene that actually did really affect my writing, where Logain, I think, has turned the Ashaman, the male true source users, into a real fighting force for the first time. And they're having this battle, and they lift the shield, and Logain orders Ashaman kill. And what follows is this bloody, disgusting slaughter where they use magic to just rip people apart. And it really it affected me in the sense that I thought this was taking the idea of combat more seriously than a lot of authors do. That it is truly a horrifying experience where you see human bodies decimated, and I tried to do my best to honor some of that in my own writing.
Well, they show you the horror from the perspective of those on the other side, seeing what's, because they were not expecting it at all, and even some of the Ashaman, horrified by what they've just done. Very, very captured very well. A lot of grimdark authors go for that vibe these days. It's tough. I find that hard to balance, because then sometimes people are shy away from the themes of bravery and courage.
Yeah.
I find too far on the grimdark side, and everyone is terrible and evil, and there aren't any causes worth fighting for. And that's what I'm wrestling with in my storytelling right now.
And I agree with you about that. You don't want to get into that territory. And I've read plenty of grimdark where they do. I mean, at the end of the day, I walked away from George R.R. Martin after like 3 books because it was just too dark.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep. I will tell you, for me, I don't like grimdark. There has to be somebody who is at least potentially redeemable, or else why bother?
Yeah.
And from my rule of thumb is, if you're going to go really, really graphic in your book, you get 1 per book. If you do it more than that, then it's like you're a hack writer. You can't make me feel any other way other than going to the, all out. I'm like, no. So George R. R. Martin, can't stand him. He gets graphic way too often. I'm like, do something else, dude. You're supposed to be a writer. So
the one thing George R. R. Martin has to teach, and there's a lot of Martin critics on X, and I get that. I walked away from his series too. But the lesson I felt like he had to teach is that your readers end up caring more if people they care about might actually die.
Yeah. They have to be real stakes.
Books where nobody's going to die and all of the main party are going to get through with, oh, maybe he got a permanent scar on his face. People lose interest in that, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
That is very true. It can become. Yeah. You don't want to go too far his way where it just feels like that's the trope. You just expect everyone to die, and sooner or later you lose investment in any of the characters. Yeah. And then you're disappointed by the ones who do survive, which is how I felt about a few in that case. But yeah, I think there's a sweet middle ground where you give real stakes, and your characters need to feel really vulnerable, including your main characters, right, Mike?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, spoiler alert. But
I see that. I saw Mark mentioning Noble Dark as a genre or vibe, and sometimes I think I write a little bit in that area myself.
Yeah. I think I'm straying slowly closer to that in my series. So yeah, I like Noble Dark as a potential label. We'll see.
So I was on a panel once, and give me a second here.
Oh, poor Mike.
Okay, maybe I'm a little better. I was on a panel once, and the guy's like, look, I write first person present tense, and a person came up and said, I never read that because, the main character has plot armor. He can't die. And he goes, so I took that as a challenge. I've now written 8 books, and in 3 of them, my main character dies, and I'm not telling you which ones. And I took that to heart, and I wrote a novella, and the main character dies, and my beta reader read, and she goes, oh my God, I had no idea that was coming. And I'm like, exactly. And she's like, this was my favorite character in the entire series, and you just killed him. And I'm like, exactly. It's so wonderful of a feeling. I don't know what this says about me, but don't vote for me in politics. How about that?
Yeah, getting a message, getting a DM from a reader saying, "I can't believe you just did that." That's like, to me, that's the fire that fuels me. That's what keeps me going.
Yeah, it's really good to get comments like
that. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Bowden, is there anything we did not ask you that we should have asked you?
Well, like I said, the green generic wall razors from Walmart. my product endorsement.
That's
But
so good.
I do feel a little bit misled because the series is called A Book and a Beverage, and I seem to be the only one drinking. But
I have water.
I had water. Yeah. You know what? I will take that to heart. Absolutely. Next time there will absolutely be a good scotch in my hand.
well done, well done. I really appreciate you guys having me on the show. This has been a great time. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
We'll have you back again. Next time you have a book launch, think of us. Don't think of all caps. Think of Bald&Balding.
think of both.
I will certainly think of you guys. Absolutely.
Do both. That's fine too.
Yeah, there you go.
Both love to have you on our shows.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Total pleasure. It's great
I would love
getting
to
to
be
actually
back.
talk in person.
I'll
As
see you guys
opposed
the
to-
next time I'm on here, and I'll see you guys the next time I come around for the chat too.
Okay, before you go, can you show us your book covers one last time so everyone can know who's not named EL?
So here's Irons in the Fire. This is the start of the Sherman Iron Mysteries. And for those who are not sci-fi fans, this is where I would recommend getting to know me. And you'll see that all the rest of the Sherman Iron books are sort of in the same vein. The red and black theme goes on and on. Until this most recent Sherman Iron book, Cold as Iron, it's sort of in as much as a story about murders and drug dealers can be a Christmas story, this is a Christmas story. So
Very nice.
the cover reflects that.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Bowden, for being on the show. Do not be a stranger. We'd love to have you back, and go to see All Caps too.
I will. It's on my list.
Brilliant.
The thing we have to do is to wave awkwardly as we wait for this to actually end as I hit end stream.
Second best part of the